The moment millions of faithful have been waiting for has arrived. The moment when a clear word was finally expected from Rome. But the word arrived in the most disconcerting way possible. Not with a solemn document, not with a public announcement, but through an indirect, almost lateral route which froze everyone. And the news is far from good. Leo XIV, contrary to the hopes many had quietly nurtured, will not lift the restrictions on the traditional Mass. A confirmation that falls like a boulder and that, starting today, changes the mood of an entire segment of the Catholic population. Stay with us until the end to find out what happens next. The day began with that air of suspense that only precedes news capable of truly shaking the ecclesial community, almost as if all of Catholicism were holding its breath, awaiting a definitive word. After weeks of whispers, imprecise previews, and some risky interpretations, the confirmation that many feared and others took for granted has arrived. The reigning pontiff, Leo XIV, has chosen to maintain the limitations on the traditional Mass, confirming the line already initiated by his predecessor and closing every window of opportunity for a change of direction considered by many to be imminent. The decision was released as an unusual official communication, presented not as a sudden gesture, but as a considered act, a sign that the new pontificate does not intend to depart from the disciplinary system that arose around tradition as custodes. The announcement immediately took on the character of news, destined to cause a stir, especially because it came at a time when many ecclesiastical circles interpreted the Holy See's silence as a prelude to a possible softening of the rules. The fact that the choice was confirmed without hesitation gave the entire affair the tone of a definitive turning point, if only by demonstrating how the Curia wishes to continue along the path already blazed. In the hours immediately following the news's release, attention shifted to the climate that had preceded the decision, an almost feverish anticipation in which observers, commentators, and the faithful tried to grasp every tiny signal coming from Rome. During the previous pontificate, in fact, many circles critical of Francis had modulated their voices, choosing an unusual caution precisely because they were convinced that Leo XIV would represent a sort of reset on the liturgical front. In those months, the idea had been fueled that the current pontiff, while not formally breaking with the recent past, could grant greater freedom to the bishops and restore broader margins to the celebration of the ancient liturgy. This expectation had almost become a thermometer of the relationship between the new pope and the elements most sensitive to tradition, a vantage point from which many judged the entire beginning of his pontificate. The outcome, however, overturned all expectations. The restrictive line was confirmed, and that initial silence, which some had interpreted as caution in anticipation of openings, instead revealed itself to be preparation for a simple consolidation of the existing situation. For many faithful who had suspended judgment in the hope of a reversal of the trend, this transition now risks becoming the moment when expectations turn into disillusionment, ushering in a new and not unnerving phase in contemporary ecclesial debate. The confirmation of the restrictive line came in a way that reveals more than it seems, not through an official document, nor through a note from the Dicastery for Divine Worship, but through the mouth of the Apostolic Nuncio to the United Kingdom, Miguel Mori Buendia, during the plenary assembly of the bishops of England and Wales, gathered at Middleton Hinsley Hall from 10 to 13th November. The speech, which took place behind closed doors, was reported by those present as a clear, almost dry passage in which the papal representative communicated that Leo XIV has no intention of repealing traditionis custodes. The spokesperson for the Episcopal Conference immediately clarified that there is no official transcript of the speech and that Rome has not released any text, thus confirming the confidential nature of the entire operation. Since then, international Catholic newspapers have begun to reconstruct the situation, noting that the news, while lacking a formal decree, was so explicit as to leave little room for doubt. The discipline remains that already defined in Pope Francis's motu proprio. Adding to the strangeness of the situation was the fact that, a few weeks earlier, the pontiff had authorized Cardinal Raymond Burke to celebrate the ancient liturgy in St. Peter's Basilica, a gesture that many had interpreted as a possible sign of an imminent change. The Vatican press office, when asked about the new indiscretion, did not comment, maintaining the institutional silence that ultimately gives greater weight to the words spoken by the nuncio. And so a communication, born in a private room without documents, was transformed into a clear signal, received as such by the entire Catholic world. The decision to maintain the restrictions isn't just a technical choice. It's a point of no return, and many in the Church are already perceiving it that way. Because from today, it's clear that those who are hoping for a change of direction will have to think again. And we're not talking about small, marginal groups, but thousands of faithful who for years have seen the traditional Mass as a refuge after so many superficial, improvised, or openly deviant liturgies. Now, they find themselves faced with a door that not only remains closed, but that seems closed forever. It's inevitable that all this generates frustration. On the one hand, it affects communities that seek silence, order, and fidelity to tradition. On the other, celebrations that veer into the theatrical or chaotic often go unchallenged. This disproportion is precisely what makes the situation so disturbing. Many will interpret it as a clear signal. The Holy See has decided which side it is on, and it doesn't matter how many times it has tried to explain that it was not seeking conflict, but only liturgical dignity. The risk now is that some Catholics will simply stop waiting. Some will take refuge in groups already on the margins. Others will seek alternative routes. Still others will quietly withdraw. When a Roman gesture is perceived as unjust, trust quickly crumbles, and rebuilding it is almost impossible. Therefore, the feeling these days is one of a fracture that cannot be easily mended. A before and after. If you feel the need to rediscover the peace, beauty, and depth of authentic faith, let Gregorian chant accompany you. Visit Fides et Traditio. You'll find voices, prayers, and sounds that bring the heart back to the silence of a God. Find the link in the description. What do you think? If you liked the video, comment Amen. God bless you.